We are back with another high-level overview episode. If you have not tuned into high-level overviews yet, what we are doing is breaking down different technical aspects of the IT field to its simplest form possible. That way we can explain them to business owners or anybody new to the tech field and hopefully give people the opportunity to ask better questions, make better business decisions, and overall be in the know and have at least some level of understanding when it comes to taking on services from an IT team, whether that be internal or a managed service provider. So what we're going to talk about today is firewalls. And before we get into what a firewall is, we have to know exactly what a firewall does. So before we can look at any of that, we have to know just kind of how information travels between computers. So if we grab a workstation here, and we're going to put a couple, we're going to put two. If we grab two workstations, and we want these two workstations to talk to each other, there's a couple of things that have to happen. First and foremost, these have to be on a network, some type of local area network or wide area network. For this purpose, we're going to go ahead and assume that we are on a local area network here, and that these computers here are actually talking to each other and hooked up via a router. All right, so what we'll do here is go ahead and hook these computers up to this router, just like so. And now this router gives these computers here the ability to speak to each other. Each of these computers will have an IP address. Let's go ahead and give them one. We'll give this 192.168.1.56. That works for me. And then we'll do 192.168.1.89. That works for me. And this is this IP address here. And this is this IP address here. So how these computers talk to each other is, first and foremost, it's going to send information to this router. That information is going to come with this IP address, and it's also going to tell the router where to send the information based on the target's IP address. So if we want to send a file over to this workstation from this one here, this file would travel all the way down to this router. This router would then look and see the destination address for this packet, and then it will send it on to the destination. That's pretty simple and pretty straightforward. Well, the places that these pieces of information travel to are called ports. And what a port is just an opening, right? If we think about a physical computer, so, or a laptop, one that may be on your desk or maybe that you're watching this through, if you look on the front or the back, I'm sure that at some point in time you've had to plug in a USB. That is an example of a physical port. That is a port that you can plug something in, and then based on whatever you plug in, it will send information into the computer, and you'll be good to go. And physical ports themselves are actually configured differently with different speeds, expectations, and even shapes. You can get a USB-C versus a classic USB-A, and it really goes on. So it also applies to software. You have ports when it comes to software as well. And not only do you have ports, you have a ton of ports. So each computer has 65,535 network ports, or you can also call them software ports. And the first 1,023 of these ports are reserved for very, very, very common services. So what happens if we want to talk to this computer here from this, we want to talk to this workstation here from this workstation here. Let's say we want to do something like access this remotely. If this is a Linux machine, we can access this remotely through a service called SSH. SSH is very commonly administered through port 22. So if port 22 is open on this computer, I can, from this computer, initiate an SSH connection and all will be well. Well, the issue with that is, what if there's a bad actor on the outside? And we'll go ahead and put a workstation here. And we're going to make this workstation here a bad one. This is a scary one, and this guy is a hacker. Well, just like the business owner or the employee can connect to this Linux machine via SSH and port 22, somebody else from the outside can as well. This begins to become problematic, and that is where firewalls come in. So what a firewall is simply a device that institutes a set of rules according to your ports. So a firewall will go here and will sit in between your network and the outside world. And if you have a firewall, what can happen is you can configure this firewall to work any way you want to. You can change the ports, you can block ports, You can lock everything down and only open certain ports. You can even only allow access to certain ports depending on what computer it's coming from. But firewalls are going to be the very thing that gives you that access. Now, firewalls are usually individual devices that are bought separately. But with that said, the general functionality of a firewall is just the idea of locking down a port. So a lot of ISPs ship their gateways with very limited firewall software on them. So if you have a router from Comcast or CenturyLink or any of the popular ISPs or even any of the smaller ones as well, if you log on to that router, you more than likely have an option to configure firewalls to at least some degree, but it's not going to work for a mission critical situation, enterprise situation, or especially a situation where compliance is necessary. But that is really how simple firewalls are. So if you have a network, whether that be at home or at your office, and you have not purchased a firewall or spoken to anybody about having a firewall configured, there is a very, very high chance that you are at a great risk. And we have to keep in mind here, bad actors and hackers usually attack via scripts, so it doesn't really matter who you are. It doesn't matter how big the company is. Everybody these days is getting attacked equally. So a firewall is going to, again, sit between you and the outside world, and then it's going to filter that traffic as it comes in via a set of rules, and then be able to protect everything on the back end. That is another episode of High Level Overview. If you are interested about anything that we've talked about, have any questions, please shoot us an email at info@gentitech.com, and we look forward to talking to you again.